president of president. I was laying there, change should be executed or something like that. Oh, yeah. Like I said, that's from there. Yeah, it's she. I don't know where it is. I just said it, not like person that gives me that grab stuff. Then make a. Some days we're going to. Like we can. Almost everywhere, I was able to like. It's like cleaning the ride relief or the boundaries of everything else. Like. It's some of you. I don't know if you could probably not option over there or whatever. But yeah, I think I'm another. Sure, I'm sure about the dates. That's the channel. Yeah, sure. And I'm like, yeah, so there's the same, hey. That I think I already checked this day, so that day, then I'm getting there, the whole time there, yes, yeah. So it's, you know, selling, I guess that's the first thing it's about, over I said, something like that, kind of that.
Yes, yeah, y'all be basically cross-shaping after we get done with all the little stuff that we've got school.
Chris, over.
Hey, what's up?
Or like, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'll get that one later, is there school in there? For sure.
I was thinking.
Before that.
Maybe not. Yeah, they're right, burgers. The one close to the one that takes the toll, right? And the game that can do this. It's a good person and for him.
Ready when you all,
Ready whenever you're ready. Yeah.
Like to call to order the Wednesday, September 10th, Transportation Technical Coordinating Committee meeting of KIPTA. Jim Sullivan, Vice Chair, presiding. Welcome. We have a roll call.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We'll start with Bull County. Here, okay. Do we have anybody from the city of Charlestown? City of Jeffersontown?
Hello.
Oh, hey Cliff. City of J-Town, Matt Minier, he might join us about 1:30, I think he told me yesterday, so he may join us late today, so. City of Jeffersonville. Do we have anybody from Mount Washington?
Yes, Emma Julian.
Emma? City of New Albany? Shepherdsville?
Yes, Arthur Jones.
St. Matthews?
Keenan's here.
Clark County?
Here, Brian Dixon.
Floyd County?
Nick Creevy here.
NDOT Public Transportation. How about NDOT Seymour? Hi, Haley. Did I see Julie on there too? Julie, are you on there?
Yes, I'm here.
Y'all both join us. Kentucky DAQ.
Hi, Claire Euler and Blake Borwick here.
Thank you all both for joining us. KYTC District 5. Now there's another meeting going on right now, so I think they got double booked today. So you got one for about one time, right? KYTC Central Office Division Plan. We see those guys. Get this here. KYTC Office of Transportation Delivery. Louisville Metro Air Pollution Control District.
Yep.
That's better. Good, how Rachel? Metro Economic Development. Metro Planning and Design. Metro Public Works.
Hello, this is Mark.
Mark. So Metro at large.
Sure. There.
Louisville Regional Airport Authority.
Here.
There. Louisville River Port Authority.
He's gonna join late.
We go.
Yeah,
Okay,
you were on me a few minutes ago.
All right. Oldham County.
Jim Sullivan here.
Yep. Oldham County Planning.
Hannah Barnes.
Oh, yeah. Port of Indiana, Jeffersonville. How about TARC Accessibility Advisory Council? See that right? Town of Clarksville. Let's go back to New Albany. Larry Summers, I see you on there. Welcome, Larry.
I'm here.
Hey. And then, who am I missing? Tark, I know Aida's gone.
Rob will be joining here in just a minute, I think.
Okay, great. All right, thank you all for joining us. We got a great crowd today. Most definitely a forum, and we got a pretty long agenda. Thank you all for joining us. We guest speaker, and we'll introduce Chris going forward. Thank you.
So you would have received the minutes from the August TTCC meeting with the electronic invitation. We have a motion to approve those minutes. Second,
I'll second that.
thank you. Is there any discussion about the minutes? If none, we have, all those in favor of approving those minutes, please say aye.
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 Opposed? None opposed, so.
Before we move on, Cedar, I just want to let you know, we got on the minutes from a prior month, you mentioned that, that you're in attendance and we fixed the minutes from a prior month. So I don't know if I don't believe that needs an action, but just want to go for the record that we captured a Cedrow's attendance that, I think it must have been for the June meeting, that we approved last month. And we noted that, hey, I was here, so we got, that's fine. Yeah,
Well, not,
yes, it's so.
Andy, will you give the, transportation policy committee report as the next agenda item?
I certainly can. Our TPC met, just a week or two ago on August 28th in this room. A couple of highlights of that meeting was, pretty good highlights, actually. At that meeting was when we, formally had adopted or approved the regional Safe Streets and Roads for All action plan. So the regional one, the overarching one, of course, there are 16 local ones, for the individual jurisdictions. And so, at that meeting, Spencer spoke a little bit about that. I spoke a little bit, but mainly Spencer. But one of the things we want to make sure everybody in this room knows that we certainly encourage those local plans to be adopted at the local level, and we're happy to help and even present it to your city council or your fiscal court or whatever the case might be. And keep the momentum going, if nothing else, right? That we've gotten from some of the stakeholder meetings and some of the multi-jurisdictional meetings that we've had over the past year and a half. So again, that was approved at the regional level. So if there is any heartburn, let's say at the city council, the fiscal court level about approving it, your program is approved at the regional level. You can always use us as a backstop if that ever comes up in some grant application or something like that. But might as well get them approved if you can and you want to, by the way, to the local level. Amendment 1 and Amendment 10. Amendment 1 of the new TIF / Amendment 10 of the existing long range plan that was approved, as discussed at this meeting last month. So that was good. I think there were 40 projects or something like that. So John Records, about 40 projects in there. Brady talked about some cost increases in Indiana, most notably the award of a substantial amount of money to the Bridge 51 project. That's the bridge that spans the Silver Creek between New Albany and Clarksville, Clark County and Floyd County. That project got, I think, nearly about $1.5 million extra or so. More than that. A little more than that. So that project appears to be fully funded at the 80/20 rate. It's a big project. It's effectively our whole program in Indiana this year. And we've learned, I think last week, that letting is probably on track for a December letting at this time. I think it's been moved back to a December letting. So does that sound right, David?
I'm gonna double check.
Okay.
No, it's been, but here now.
Yeah, so but nonetheless, seems like it's in good shape for this fiscal year.
I just left a meeting with JTL and that December letting is what they just informed me. So
Okay, great,
Double checked in SPMS, it's set for December 10th.
cool. No, major project, major local project, I guess you could say, which those are the ones that like. Shift boosts, those were approved. The working group met to discuss the boosts, I guess earlier last month, and the shift boosts were approved. And so those, for those that don't know, those are the where we give the boost to the scores that come out of the KYTC scoring system. And 18 projects were boosted by the TPC. I think it was 12 in Jefferson County, and then 3 in Oldham and 3 in Bullitt County. So I'd be happy to answer any other questions. But one more thing. Greg presented, kind of gave some early information about the update to the our public participation plan that he'll be in the process of updating here in the next few months and whatnot. So seeking feedback from you guys too on that pretty soon. So like I said, happy to take any questions. All right. That concludes our report.
Well, I don't see any questions on that. Greg, can you provide, check the public comments?
Yes, we did not receive any public comments prior to the meeting. I'm not seeing any in the Q and A, but anything comes up, I'll bring it up in other business.
Next thing, you need to announce our speaker.
Yes, so we have Claire Yates from Louisville Metro and Elizabeth Bark from WSP here to talk about something I think that the whole region will find interesting. That is a recent, I guess, completion of the speed manager study, Louisville Metro speed manager study. So old friend to Kipta, or our current friend to Kipta, Elizabeth Bark, most of you all know, she used to be one of us. And so want to welcome her back. And Elizabeth, over to you. You're welcome to present right there or go to the podium, whatever your preference is.
I'll go with the clicker if you want.
Yeah, we can do it here.
Okay. I'll just round it.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, that'll get you. In fact, it's I get you better.
All right. Well, thanks for introducing us. So, but yeah, hi, Elizabeth and Claire. Really good to be back to see a lot of friendly faces and talk to you about, I think one of the most impactful projects I've ever worked on. So thank you, Claire, for allowing us to work with you on this. Anything else you want to say before we begin?
Yeah, sure. So this planning study, but then also the resulting implementation, or at least some of it, was funded by Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, specifically their Highway Safety Improvement Program. And Vision Zero Louisville, being Louisville's transportation safety initiative, just more generally, is a partnership among Louisville Metro Public Works, now Department of Transportation, hold for applause, and the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet. So it really does take, a little bit of everybody, right? You know, you have to have that, that funding support that is crucial, but also, not just the funding, but also, sort of the institutional support as well, to really lean into the safe system approach.
Mm-hmm. And technical support with data, which I'll talk about as well. Oh no. Here we go. Okay, so before we get started into kind of the weeds of the plan, I wanted to take a second and pose a question. So I have 3 different roads, all in Louisville, in Jefferson County. And wanted to hear from you all, maybe what you see as similar between all 3 of these roads. And there's a lot of similarities, but there's one specific one I'm kind of wanting to hone in on. Any guesses? Yes. So the posted speed limit on all 3 of these is the same. It's 55 miles per hour. So you'll see up here. Maybe. Yes. Oh, not on the screen.
Yeah, we'll
Okay.
on the screen.
The one on the top is really nearby. It's right outside of J-Town. It's Taylorsville Road, right where it turns into 55 miles per hour speed limit. One is I-264. I can tell which one that is on the left. And then the one on the right is out in Floyd's Fork area, more of a rural road area at the corner or the edge of Jefferson County. And this is to make a point that we have, you know, sometimes the same posted speed limit, that drivers are, you know, they have certain expectations of how fast they should drive given the speed limit. And we'll talk about that perception too, but the built environment in each of these cases is different. You have one that's a limited access freeway, you have a rural road, and then you have a road that's right outside what we would consider kind of a dense suburban urban area. So that was, you know, something that we kept in mind throughout this plan, and really recognizing that speed management is not just about lowering the speed limit everywhere. It's about ensuring that there's life-sustaining speeds, that people can survive crashes, that we don't have so many fatalities and serious injuries when there are crashes, but also for us to have those context-sensitive speeds, given that there's pedestrians in some areas, bicyclists, and just trying to have a safer environment all around. And I'm gonna pass it over to Claire to talk a little bit about like why Louisville Metro wanted to develop a speed management plan.
Sure.
Thanks.
This one. Vision Zero Louisville is entirely modeled after the safe system approach, or kind of structured around that. Just like the high injury network is our kind of core document or guiding resource for our safer road strategy. The speed management plan serves the same for our safer speeds strategy as well, right? And then that safety action plan is sort of the umbrella that sort of guides all of our efforts, including post-crash care and even safer people as well. And so I like to think that this plan offers a more kind of a fresh framework for how to think about speed, because either speed typically wasn't considered much, or it was sort of divorced from roadway design and engineering. And so we're trying to incorporate speed and speed management and even considering speed throughout the design process. And as Elizabeth mentioned, the ultimate goal is to have all of the safe system approach overlapping strategies working in concert so that we can prevent fatal and serious injury crashes.
So now I'm gonna walk through our 4-step process, kind of whittled it down, oversimplified it into that. And those are data analysis, prioritization, public engagement, and recommendations. So we're gonna kind of briefly step through each of those, but I did list, I'd say some of our driving questions that we had when we were developing this process. So with the data, we wanted to know, how fast are driving speeds in Jefferson County? Where are speeds the fastest? Are speed limits appropriate? Because we hear all the time, oh no, this is too fast for my road. And we always hear those conversations out in the community. And then we also wanted to look at peer cities and see what are other people doing. We love borrowing great ideas from other places. And prioritization, we want to know what kind of road characteristics were risk factors for speeding. Was it more 2-lane roads, 4-lane roads? Did lane width have a factor in it? So we wanted to dig a little bit into that. Also, where's there high speeds and severe crashes? Like, could those be linked anywhere? Speed's probably a factor in most crashes, not that it always gets reported as a factor, but what can we draw from those locations? And then again, going back to the speed limits, where do we see speeds most incompatible with that built environment? Public engagement, Louisville Metro is dedicated to hearing from the public and getting their input, so this was very important as well. And we wanted to hear from the public, like, what is speeding? What do people, is it 1 mile per hour over the speed limit? Is it 10? Is it only if you get caught? So there's a range. We wanted to see, what was the general consensus. Also, what is the appetite for traffic calming strategies? Because that can range anywhere from making sure there are more signs out on the road to automated speed cameras. So that's, we wanted to kind of hear what people thought about those solutions. And then map-based activity, where do people see speeding issues? That's always very valid input to have into this plan as well. And then finally, in the recommendation phase, wanted to look at policies, programs, and actual projects on the road that we could maybe glean out of this. So in the data analysis, we used HERE data provided by KYTC to get a sense of operating speeds. Now, this is GPS probe data, big data set, so take it with a grain of salt, but it is probably the best indication of operating speeds that we could get. And you'll see in that map where we mapped what we considered speeding. So we defined that as at the 85th percentile where speeds were more than 10 miles per hour over the posted speed limit. So 85th percentile, many of us have heard that that's a factor in setting speed limits. So that's kind of why we picked that. And then 10 miles per hour over that, over the posted speed limit, we felt was pretty conservative of a definition, and yet we still saw this widespread speeding throughout the county. We also defined excessive speeding as 20 miles per hour over the posted speed limit. Again, looking at the 85th percentile, you'll see that in the red highlights. It's a little bit difficult to see, but those are typically more shorter segments in transition zones, like where drivers were coming off of the interstate onto a surface street road, or where we knew a speed limit dropped. You'll see a couple of longer stretches too out there on Long Run Road and way south Dixie Highway. Had a lot of excessive speeding. And then you'll also see that we found speeding occurred more often on minor arterials and major collectors. And excessive speeding occurred mostly on principal arterials. Okay, so once we knew where kind of the state of operating speeds in the county, we wanted to dig into that idea of appropriate speed limits. So we did a literature review, narrowed down some of the emerging methods into the 3 that you see on the screen, and did a little test on a couple of roads in Jefferson County with those. And through discussion with the project team, we decided to move forward with Florida DOT's context classification guidance. And we developed this from it. So Florida's context is a statewide methodology. I think theirs has 8 contexts. We use their methodology as a base, definitely changed some metrics to make it fit a smaller area, countywide, and also Louisville Metro, because we are in Florida. And so you'll see the 6 contexts on the screen, including downtown Louisville in the urban core. And this methodology considers land use, road connectivity, like intersection density and block length, and also population and employment density in those urban contexts. That's a factor. And so it was a big GIS analysis and mapping exercise to find out, what road centerline segments fit which context, and then definitely made some adjustments and judgment calls to create this. So we developed road context for all major roads in Jefferson County, and you'll see that ranges all the way from rural along the edge of the county in green to inside 264. You have more of the urban general, urban center, urban core. And I do also want to point a unique one that we added based on the town center form districts that Louisville has. So I don't know if you can see in the blue, there's a couple of blue spots, mostly in the suburban, like between I-264 and I-265. And these form districts in the Land Development Code have smaller building setbacks, promoting more mixed use buildings and more pedestrian facilities, connectivity in those areas. But around these areas is predominantly suburban. So we saw a need to kind of have a road context that was linked to those form districts to help drive a change in speed limit and road design that connected more with the land use. So again, that context of the built environment. And once we had those road contexts, we looked at how some recommended speed limits that we arranged, that we kind of connected with those road contexts, how that compared to current posted speed limits. So for each of those 6 contexts, there's a range. We recommend starting on the lower end of that range, and we do have an image of that later in the slide deck that I'll point out. But so from the lower end of that range, how does that compare with current posted speeds? And you'll see, pretty close, there's a lot of within 5-10 miles per hour. But then you'll see in Old Louisville, that orange, just south of downtown, that's a little bit more different. From maybe what's recommended. Right now, it's 35 miles per hour through that area. Based on the context classification, should probably be more about 25 miles per hour. And so that's an area that, the speed limit could probably be lowered and be lowered quite easily, especially with some other projects that are being moved forward by the Metro, such as one-way to two-way street conversion, curve extensions, things like that. But then along the edge of the county, you see a lot of bright red, longer corridors that are 20 miles per hour different in posted speed versus recommended speed limit. So those might be areas that, maybe the low end of that range doesn't fit. Maybe 35 miles per hour is not appropriate, given the built environment out there. Maybe it should just be 45. But even just lowering the speed limit to 45 might need to also have some road changes, some road design changes, such as narrowing the lane width or things like that.
Yeah, and an example of that would be Kentucky 1934, which is Greenbelt Highway, King Run Road. You can see there, it's bright red, and to Elizabeth's point, is 35 miles per hour appropriate on the Greenbelt? No, but maybe through looking at a little bit more holistic of a view, because that road is on the high injury network. It also has really high speeds. We just know that anecdotally as well. We see that in some of the crashes or crash results, particularly angle collisions, that end up being fatal because of the high speed. And so there is an active safety study right now along the entire 11.5 mile corridor of 1934 to kind of wrap your arms around what can we do to improve safety, and then integrated into that will be what is a more appropriate context speed. On the Greenbelt, it probably will still be 45 or 50, but you would overlay that with things like maybe part of the corridor becomes an R-cut corridor or a roundabout corridor. And so then you're also, even though your speed might still be kind of high, your speed limit might be kind of high, you're trying to disperse that speed across the corridor and still reduce those conflict points when the speed disparity would be so great that you'd probably get a fatal or serious injury crash.
Yeah, that's a great point, Claire. And I think that leads perfectly into prioritization. So, the 1934 project, our King Red, that was already in the works. It aligned perfectly. It was on the HIN, and we see that there are probably speed management concerns out there as well. But for the rest of the areas, there's a lot that could be tackled, both with where we're seeing high operating speeds, those potentially inappropriate speed limits. So what do you address? So we created a framework consisting of these 6 categories. And we weighted each of these and definitely weighted more toward the speed and the crash factors. And we came up with a list of some top corridors to review further. And we wanted to, we'll see these in the recommendations, but we want to look at, okay, where are corridors that are already flagged like 1934? Okay, maybe we take those out of the bucket. And then start going through, is this a low cost improvement, or is this like a major road reconstruction? So that was kind of our next step with the corridors.
Not too many low costs.
That's not on these. No, maybe some spot improvements. Okay, so stepping back from there, just before we get into recommendations, I want to touch a little bit more on public engagement. You may have seen the survey back when it was out. I guess it was last summer? It was last summer. And we had real strong, we had a public survey, that was our main public engagement event. Strong participation, over 1,400 people took the survey. They left over 4,000 comments, which was great. And it showed a strong understanding of speeding as a safety concern, like people thought speed was an issue. It also saw a lot of support for increased police enforcement. Also showed support for speed safety cameras and redesigning roads, which I'll show in just a minute. And we're definitely taking the results of this as a foundation for maybe potential public safety campaigns in the future, or other outreach efforts. So this is one of the tables showing results. We asked again, what kind of potential solutions for speed management, traffic calming are you interested in? Do you support? And this shows, top to bottom, the average. And it was encouraging to me to see that there was support for redesigning the roads. There was support for maybe more aggressive measures such as speed safety cameras that, they're not currently legal here. So to have that public support for legalization was encouraging. And then we also had the mapping exercise. I know this font is very hard to read. This map is straight out of the plan, so I encourage you to go to the plan and read it. We had, as you can see, just an amazing amount of input from where, this is specifically the driving one, okay, where you're driving, where do you have speeding concerns. You'll see a lot on I-264, which was outside of our purview. We did surface streets, but still good input to have. And you'll see a lot of areas like downtown, Old Louisville, the Highlands, St. Matthews, Beachmont, had a lot of a large density of comments. And then with the walking one, you'll see a very large concentration over Cannons Lane near Sacred Heart Academy. There was a lot of comments there about drivers, speeding through a low speed limit neighborhood road. A lot of other comments specifically referenced walking in school zones, and near parks, like having that concern of speeding vehicles near you. So that kind of drove home the point to us that people wanted to be able to access these community assets without worrying about high speeds on the roads that they're walking next to. Now I'll pass it back over to Claire, and she's going to go over the recommendations.
One more point on that public engagement was that I think we got 20 out of 26 Metro Council members to include the online survey in their own newsletters, and we kept it open for 60 days, a little bit longer than your standard 30, to kind of help drum up that support and drum up the input. So yeah, I mean, I've never worked on a online survey before. They got 1,400 comments. I mean, even in Jefferson County, that is a lot of feedback. And it just kind of reinforces what you hear anecdotally or hear from council members across the county, that their biggest concern or most frequent citizen complaint is speeding. That's number one, and I think that might be why 1,400 people in the county took the time to submit feedback. So on the recommendations of the plan itself, as Elizabeth mentioned earlier, we tried to break it up into policies, programming, and projects, road construction projects. So on the policy side, that is that means taking a holistic approach to setting speed limits. So as Elizabeth mentioned, using crash data, speed data, population density, land use, pedestrian generators to inform your decision making, not just exclusively 85th percentile of motorists only, without looking at the bigger picture. establish standards for speed limit sign placement and spacing. That might not be very radical, but it still needs to be said and still needs to be done. And then lastly, what might be a little bit more controversial is to partner with KYTC to continue pushing for state legalization of automated speed enforcement. We included that in the plan because Louisville Metro Council a couple of years ago passed a resolution in support of automated traffic enforcement. We've had ongoing discussions with several council members and with KYTC about Louisville Metro government's and KYTC's shared support for automated speed enforcement. And so we felt like that was appropriate or reasonable to include that in the plan. On the program side, I'll touch on in a second too, is basically training the trainers. So we're looking at in-person training of engineers and planners, both at Public Works and KYTC. This is essential. Hire or designate a speed management coordinator. You can't develop a 100-page plan with that requires a sustained years-long investment and not have someone who quarterbacks it and basically makes it their baby. You have to have someone who is going to serve as subject matter expert and that you can lean on, because the safe system approach is so vast if used correctly that you really need to start developing an entire team of safe system approach coordinators rather than just having one individual. And lastly, this again too, use an asset management tool like barcodes on signs to help you stay organized and proactive and efficient when adding, replacing or moving signs. One thing that Elizabeth and I ran into in the data collection and analysis phase, and that we kind of slowed down in order to try to get right, was are there discrepancies between the posted speed limit and what's included on either KYTC's HIS, Highway Information Systems database, Metro's database? Sometimes they're all three might be different. And so looking at, okay, well, particularly if you don't have an inventory system, then you don't know when that sign was installed. You don't even know if it's still there. Sometimes on Google Street View, you might see a sign, 25 mile an hour, whatever speed limit sign in 2016. It vanishes and never returns until the modern day. So, some of those sorts of things I think are important to keep in mind. It's not, it's pretty basic, but it ain't simple, and it's not easy to do.
Yeah, and it's one of the easiest things to get driver compliance. Like, as if people know what the speed limit is through signage on the road, then it's one more thing that they're likely to help encourage them to drive the appropriate speed limit.
That's right. Yeah, if you turn off a major road, say you turn off from an arterial onto a collector, and there's no speed limit signs at all. We're not doing ourselves any favors to kind of set that tone, or at least suggest or keep honest people honest about what a reasonable speed is on that roadway. And then, so I mentioned policies, programs, and so now on the roadway project side, we integrated the high entry network and speed management principles and speed data to develop these focus list of 15 corridors of concern is what we're calling it. And excuse me, we developed project sheets or kind of cut sheets that give you kind of a high level of what's the corridor, what are some of the existing conditions, and what are some potential countermeasures that we can look at. It definitely isn't enough to put in the 6-year highway plan, but it is enough to kind of give us a framework for when we hopefully initiate safety studies on these corridors. And also too critically, as Elizabeth mentioned, we keep a really constant focus on project overlap, right? So you'll notice that one of the roads not highlighted in pink as a corridor of concern for this specific instance would be Broadway, because there's already a multi-year long-range project on that road. So we didn't want to duplicate efforts there. We wanted to try to be strategic with our high entry network.
Mhm. And just anecdotally, I know we've been talking for a while, within the city of J-Town, I was working on another planning study with Matt Munier and this with Claire. And Taylorsville Road, right through the heart of J-Town, was a concern for pedestrians crossing the street with this other planning study. It popped up as a corridor of concern in the speed management study, and so to be able to use this plan to help locals at the smaller cities in Jefferson County have more justification for improvements behind some of their road project ideas, that's a good way to have these corridors of concern be used as well.
So, what's next? So the plan is complete. So, what are we working on now? Well, the first step toward implementation is developing a set of education and training modules to kind of train the trainer, as I mentioned. Our goal is to equip technical staff with a good understanding of what speed is, how to communicate about speed management effectively, and how to integrate it into their practice and into everything that they're doing. And so the modules will cover things like context-based speed limit setting, right? Where is that information held? Is it open to the public? All of those sorts of things. How will you use those tools in the work that you do? Primarily engineers and planners as roadway designers. And then we're also building these as slide decks, both for in-person workshops. But as we were walking in, Elizabeth and I were talking about turnover, and you also need something as sort of a training module for new staff as well, or even refreshers. This might be something that could be offered on an ongoing basis, maybe once a year, to kind of serve as a refresher for folks who are already using speed management practices, but also onboarding for new folks as well.
And we have one more slide. Claire and I were talking about this presentation this morning, and we're trying to connect this to the KIPTA NPO work. And we know that you all recently completed the safety action plan, including with your individual jurisdictions. So, ideas for pursuing safer speeds on your own high injury network within your jurisdiction. This can help give you a framework for some ideas of how to do that. And I know KIPTA still has streetlight data. We do. They have some new speed data functionalities. Not to put Andy on the spot, but there is speed data out there that you can look at. To, again, overlap with high injury networks. Again, hone in on those areas to prioritize improvements.
Yeah, and as you may know, the state KYTC is launching or just getting underway for a statewide speed management action plan. So if you're a community in Kentucky, be sure to be plugged in on that. If you're in Indiana, maybe that might mean SS4A supplemental planning funds for speed management plan and resulting program, or maybe like some demonstration activities as well, kind of related to that. And then also as Elizabeth mentioned, focus on your transition zones. Those areas where you go from maybe a little bit more rural into either a town center or more suburban area as well.
Yep. That's about it.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I'll start off with a question. because I-
Yeah.
I've got one of those.
You mentioning street light, I was actually gonna ask Andy or Ron Maselli, after this meeting, but now's the perfect time we speak with our law enforcement officers frequently about, enforcement, understanding that they're challenged with having often more critical duties to address than speed enforcement, but it's still important. So, we were talking about functionality of potentially street light and to identify hotspots for speeding, so they know where to go as opposed to just patrolling. Is that something that is available to the KIPTA members?
I think in theory it would be, how trustworthy it is, or maybe it doesn't need to be, 100% trustworthy, but.
No, they can-
There was the segments on street light for speed, I don't recall how short they are, right? Are they speeding, just south of that curve, or is it one long stretch that's half mile long that might not be as focused, I guess.
So we can do it in two ways. We can do a residential perspective where you shorten the links, you just gonna be like a block to block link. While we can do a longer, of course, tertiary link where you can take like a longer segment of road. So yes, we can do it in both ways, and I assume there was some sort of normalization that happened while because of things like the traffic signals, stop there, traffic signals. And all that.
Yes, when we had, our segments varied in length as well. At a certain point, I can't quite remember when, but I could go back and look at my data. We did have to expand to longer segments and yeah, normalize it through.
True, longer segment would work better for this type of scenario, but we have to ensure to normalize it. That's why I just talk about the traffic signals. Or in theory, yes, or short as I.
But it sounds like for this task, if we wanted to identify locations, provide those to you, and you can help us out with that.
I think especially on the,
But we don't want to just give
Non-
you the county and say, that's where it's bad.
well, maybe, but the signalized intersections are gonna foul up real quick, because the approaches to those are gonna be ultra low speed. Because some people stop there, and some people stop there for 90 seconds or whatever to wait for the drink. So the unsignalized or the stretches between signals, I think they're more potential than at the intersections where the streetlight speed data is most certainly gonna be kind of screwed. I'd be frank, yeah.
I think we have plenty of areas in Oldham County without stoplights, so.
Yeah, right.
That's a good point.
Yeah. I have another question, if I might. Do y'all have any advice for some of the LPAs in Kentucky in particular about how to approach KYTC about maybe seeing about speed limits getting changed in their communities? Get to have a little bit of success. Mick did a couple of years ago with Bedford, and it's kind of the same issue where the development has grown out. There's development where it was rural. To Anna's point about 2-lane roads in Oldham County, but now it's not as rural anymore. But we still have the rural speed limit, right? And so at least getting it changed in those spots seems like nobody says no to that, I would think. But do you all have any advice for the smaller communities to work with KYTC in particular?
I think, if I'm not mistaken, KYTC still relies exclusively on 85th percentile, at least for now. But, we learned a lot, through this speed management plan. We were the first community in Kentucky to do one. And there were a few folks, at KYTC, who really wanted to bring that statewide. And so I think through that statewide speed management action plan, I think hopefully within the next couple of years or so, there might be a very different answer to your question, hopefully, where they look a little bit more, as we've been talking, context sensitive, right? Because you're absolutely right. I mean, 55 on a 2-lane road with no shoulder or maybe rumble strips, no roadway lights, no sidewalks or shared use paths. And you've got several new subdivisions sprouting up and a new gas station and fast food restaurant and things like that, and introducing more conflict points. They're just incongruous.
Yeah.
We see that a few places in.
I think when we got that changed up in Bedford, Mick, correct me if I'm wrong, we talked to D5 traffic off the folks over there in the traffic office, and it's a bigger issue in Kentucky because in Indiana, the roads are not state owned, so it's up to the local communities to kind of, set speed limits on their own roads and perhaps create policies that do so, but Kentucky. Louisville Metro, Oldham County, Bullock County alike, the major roads are the state roads. And so probably the complaints or whatever are on state routes probably as much as they are, on locally owned roads.
And I don't wanna speak for them, but I think that is a point of conversation within that statewide plan is, okay, what is the process? How do we tell people what the process is? And, from what we know, it is formal, but maybe just announcing more what it is.
My sense is they're far more open-minded than ever.
Yes,
yes,
And I think that's important.
Well, I think if you're talking about regionally or maybe just individual segments, because coincidentally, I've reached out to KYTC about one segment, 50 lane, because it's an interesting road. It's not signed, but it's regulatory speed limit, so it's understood to be 55. But if you drive because of horizontal curvature, there are 4 or 5 locations where there's advisory speed to go down to 35 or less. So it's got a significant amount of advisory speeds and chevrons. It's really well signed. But why is it still 55? So
Yep.
My understanding was that we have our judge executive write a letter to them asking for a speed study. That's been done, and we understand that it's probably gonna rely a lot on this 85th percentile, so it'd be interesting to find out what the data is on it.
Takes time, maybe don't mistake about that, it took probably a few months to get through the process, is that right? The Bedford experience, yeah.
But that's my understanding.
No, that sounds right, yeah, that's correct.
Any other questions?
Thank you all so much.
Yeah,
Well, thank you.
thanks.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
Any other thoughts or questions? Well, with that, Andy, if you'll take the next item on the agenda, the Unified Planning Work Program Amendment.
This is always an exciting one, so I have a pretty presentation, but it's only a couple slides, I promise. The UPWP Unified Planning Work Program, that is something that got approved back in April, as it is required to be approved around that time by KYTC and NDOT. It got approved back in April of this year. We're due for an amendment of it. It's not a major thing like it is for a TIP or an MTP amendment, but it is an amendment nonetheless, and we have to go through the right process to get us to where we want to be. Just as a reminder, the UPWP is an annual document. Annual at KIPTA, biannual, and some it goes that way, but it's annual at KIPTA, where it outlines all the funding that we receive for our operations and it outlines the work that we do as a metropolitan planning organization. The need for this amendment is threefold, all of which I would categorize as kind of minor, but nonetheless essential. The first of which is the Federal Transit Administration, in essence, has recommended to TARC that that FTA wants to see the TARC Downtown Transit Center. Because it's a planning phase of a transit project, FTA has requested that project show up explicitly in the UPWP. As you all might recall, over the past year or so, probably a little bit less, 100,000 of federal STBG dollars from Indiana were awarded to that project, 400,000 in Kentucky. Again, that's for the TARC Downtown Transit Center planning phase that's going to be underway very soon. So we're getting that in there. The KIPTA funded PL studies, Metropolitan Planning funded studies, this year, as Brady has brought to you in a couple earlier this year, a couple months ago, Louisville Metro and City of Shepherdsville were awarded some of those federal planning dollars. In the original work program, all we had was we saved some money for planning studies, reserved for planning studies. So now that we know which ones they are, we're putting it in there. So again, real simple stuff there on that one. And then number 3 is kind of pretty simple also. In Indiana, for the planning funds that we receive, the federal planning funds that we receive, we are allowed to carry those over year. Remember, in Indiana, we can't carry over the capital dollars, but we can the planning dollars. Kentucky, it's the opposite actually. And so in Indiana, we are for those carryover dollars in the original UPWP, we made an estimate. And so now that the fiscal year concluded, fiscal 25 concluded, we know what we have to carry over, and so that's in there too. It was actually a reduction from, I think, 170,000 was our pretty blunt estimate to the refined estimate of I think it was $134,000 in change. I think that's all I have. Yeah, like I said, kind of loose ends here. The public comment period is ongoing right now, right, Greg? And it's going on for another week or so. And then if there are any comments that we get through that process, don't know that there will be. I don't know that this is all that enticing to comment on. Maybe it is. Those comments will be handed over to the TPC, much like the TIF and TP amendments. But I am seeking a recommendation of this committee's approval to recommend for TPC approval later in the month. Happy to answer any questions about this, but again, I think it's pretty straightforward, simple.
So can we have a motion to recommend this amendment to a TPC? Thank you. We have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions for Andy?
I have a question. So like towards the beginning of this plan, there's a status of comprehensive plans, other land use planning activities. Just so you know, we are updating our comprehensive plan right now. It goes to planning commission in a couple weeks.
Fantastic.
So I don't know if that matters for this.
No, well, not no. No, it's not. Now that it's being updated, let's make sure that in the one for next year that we have that. Because I think what's required in UPWP is the status of the various ones from all around the region. So typically the way that works is each year we kind of do a little research and do a little recollection of what came before us here and say, hey, the Oldham County Comp Plan got updated here and cross out that.
Okay, fingers crossed that it'll be updated by the time.
Okay.
We're
All right,
updating.
if you think about it, make sure you let us know.
Okay.
And we should get it. Yeah, of course.
Any other thoughts or questions? Oh, if not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
And Brady, your turn with the Kentucky cost increases.
Oh, so sorry. That's okay. Thank you.
Right.
An announcement for MPO dedicated cost increase requests was made to the TCC representatives on July 17th. You have to receive 15 cost increase applications totaling over $22 million. These requests were then brought to the Kentucky folks who showed up for the biennial MPO dedicated project review meeting, which was on August 25th. That group reviewed the applications and has provided a recommendation for granting additional SDBG funds to existing Kentucky projects that I will share with you today. As a reminder of the kind of timeline with these SDBG cost increase reserve requests, there are 4 dedicated periods that we have each year. For the SDBG cost increase request, you can only request funds typically in the year for a phase in the year that you're currently in. So if it's fiscal year 25, you can request increases for fiscal 25 phases. The exception to that is the very end of each respective fiscal year, where around this time, which is in August, July, September time, we're also able to request funds for the upcoming fiscal year's project phases if you're anticipating cost increase needs. So that's where we are today. So we're going to be looking at requests primarily for projects that are going to be shifting into fiscal year 26. What that means is we have a carryover, the fiscal 25 SDBG reserved funds that were not utilized in fiscal year 25. That money carries over into fiscal year 26. And we have the full allocation of fiscal year 26 SDBG cost increase reserve. When you combine those numbers together, that gives us a total of $6,310,900. So that's how much money is available right now to be programmed to projects. This is a list of all of the projects that requested funds. We'll go through them real quick here. The first one is a historical use trail from Mount Washington. They have updated cost estimates for construction, requested $839,000 federal SDBG funds. Next project here is English Station Road, so KYTC project that has an updated cost estimate for gas relocation work specifically. This project phase is ready to go. They're ready to authorize the funds. They just need the funds. And so at per the discussion of the biennial group, that was something that was deemed as important. As you can see, it's a $2.8 million utility phase, so it's more expensive relatively than many of the other requests here. But because it's ready to actually spend the money, that's kind of giving it a little bit of a bump to keep the project moving. Third project on here is US 42. That's requesting some additional construction funding. Because the construction phase for fiscal year 26 is unlikely to actually happen in fiscal year 26, that request was deemed ineligible at this time. It could be requested at a later, more appropriate time when they get closer to the letting. So the group has taken that one off the board. Request from the next project is from University of Louisville, GIPTA ID 2982. These are 3 separate phases for the same project. So a little bit extra for design, a little bit extra for utilities, and a little bit extra for construction. This project has had a little bit of an adjustment in the scope based on some negotiations and changes dealing with the project. And so there's a little bit of money for each of these phases that is associated that they are needing a little more in order to account for those design adjustments. Next one is from Old County, so LaGrange Underpass west of LaGrange, GIPTA ID 321. They are requesting a little bit of extra money for design and a lot of extra money for construction. The little bit of design is deemed by the group as something essential to keep the project moving. This is a project that's hoping to go to letting within the next few months for construction. However, the construction funding of $11 million is such an amount that it was deemed more appropriate to compete as a part of the call for projects next month. Next one is Mattingly Old LaGrange Road Trail. That's a design funding increase for that project, just a cost estimate. Updates their need for KYDC oversight as well for that project, if I remember correctly. And then KY 22 improvements 31 GIPTA ID 3141, another Old County project. Similar situation, some additional funding needed for some final design, structure design, and geotechnical investigation for that project. Next few are Louisville Metro, River Road, multimodal improvements from 3rd Street to 7th Street. This project was actually was let earlier, has already been let, but the bids came in over what was currently programmed. So they are requesting an additional $400,000 federal in order to cover the higher costs than they had anticipated. Next one is River Road. This is another project. They're requesting $4 million at this time. It's a large ask considering all of the requests at this time. This project would also compete in the call for projects. So similar to the LaGrange Underpass project was deemed by the group. Let's reconsider that request in the call for projects as opposed to the cost increase reserve. Next one is Mutual Bank Road, another Louisville Metro project, asking for $1.6 million. This project was in a similar boat as English Station Road. However, this project, the need for the money quickly it's not as ready to go to use the money as English Station Road, which can use it right now. So similar situation, Mutual Bank Road, fairly large amount request, going to compete again in the call for projects. And the last 2 requests are small cost adjustments from TARP for a couple of their bus stop access improvement projects. So if you total all of these phases here that are not marked out, that totals $5,211,608 federal dollars, STBG dollars. If approved, that would still leave almost $1.1 million remaining for the rest of fiscal year 26. So there's still a little bit of extra money for the rest of fiscal year 26 in case other cost increase needs occur later in the year. And so that's all that I have. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer, but otherwise action is requested to recommend the approval of the proposed cost increase requests as presented today.
Brady, I appreciate I think that was a thorough summary of having been involved in the work group, a thorough summary of what was discussed in order to leave. Allow cost increases for those that were asked for reasonable and leave some money for the fiscal year, not completely drain that pot, right?
That meeting a couple weeks ago, it seemed to be a pretty productive meeting, a cooperative meeting, to say the least. Yeah.
So with that, do we have a motion to recommend Brady's outline plan to TPC? Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, got Keith there. Thank you. Any other discussion or questions for Brady? Hearing none, I'll ask if all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, recommendation is passed. Thank you. Thank you, Brady. Next, I guess you're on the agenda also for the phase shifts.
Yes. We just have one project to discuss briefly. For a phase shift exception request, as we're ending the end of fiscal year 25, we have a lot of projects that are going to be shifting into fiscal year 26. Per KIPTA's project management guidebook rules, projects receive 2 free shifts. In other words, you can shift a project phase into the future as many years as you need to, 2 times without any kind of extra steps other than updating it in the tip. If you have to shift the same project phase 3 times before getting to a right-of-way utility or construction phase, then a exception request from the TPC is required. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today, is one project that is requesting for a 3rd shift without having yet obligated a right-of-way utility or construction phase. And that is from Jeffersontown, their recreational parkway sidewalk improvement project, KIPTA ID 2619, state ID 5-198. But due to some delays previously in the project's life period due to COVID, as well as some adjustments in the city administration that have slowed some things down with the priority of the town, they are kind of readjusting their timeline and would like a phase shift exception to be granted for their construction phase, which is currently programmed for $529,008 of STBG funds. And so they want to shift that from fiscal year 25 to fiscal year 27. And that's all the information I have for you right now. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer.
I've got a quick one, just so this is just for the exceptions, the other numerous ones you mentioned that are gonna come with, I guess, the cost increases, that's a separate date for deadline?
So
Is that a separate date for deadline?
so you have you're talking about the phase shifts or the cost increases?
The phase shift portion, correct,
Okay.
phase shift.
So the normal phase shifts for all the other projects that are moving from 25 to 26, we will need project applications, expedited project applications, so that we can update it in the tip, but it's not approving, those don't need approval necessarily. This is the only one that needs special.
This is just for that exception.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion to approve this phase shift exception?
Motion.
Thank you. A second?
I'll second that.
Again? Any questions? No? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, recommendation passed. Great, thank you. Thanks, Brady. Next we have Chris with the functional class update.
Have a little presentation.
There's a handout over there. It's probably particularly useful for our Indiana sponsors, yeah, so.
Yeah, everyone else can look at it, but it's all Clark County and Floyd County. Alright. So I'm gonna just give a quick little recap to some of the things that we've been through so far. So the motivation for the functional class updates that we have recommended was the FHWA adjusted urban area boundary update, which followed the census derived 2020 urban area boundary released on December 29th of 2022. The associated updates must be approved by December 29th of this year at the federal level. So we had a few working meetings last spring and we put together recommendations throughout each of the 5 main KIPTA counties. We presented to TTCC and TPC last May. These were passed on to NDOT and KYTC, who eventually will send them to FHWA. Today I'm going to discuss the NDOT edits that we received back from our original submission. And that's what I have in the handout that I've included. For those who are online, I think in particular, Brian, Nick, and Larry, I will email this handout to you all following this meeting. But otherwise, I'm going to try to summarize them the best I can. And on the Kentucky side of the river, I don't have any updates to discuss. I reached out to KYTC last week and they hadn't gotten to ours yet. So that'll be hopefully more on that in the future. All the public roadways are either 1 through 7 urban, 1 through 7 rural. As a reminder, roadways within the 2020 FHWA adjusted for the smooth boundary are urban. Urban roads 1 through 6 and rural roads 1 through 5 are typically the ones eligible for the federal transportation funds in most cases. Okay, so I'm gonna go through Clark County first. Our data of the existing functional classifications, when we went through our working group, it seems that maybe some of the data we had was older because some of the ones that got rejected, the only reason was because they already were what we wanted them to be. So no big deal there. Some were downgraded, some we recommended to downgrade, they were left as is. And we had some additions and adjustments near Veterans Parkway and Green Tree Boulevard, as well as Brown Foreman Road and Utica Sellersburg Road. I did try to, and I apologize if this map is like really difficult, but this little area here was kind of a cluster of additions that NDOT wanted to include. So, well, as you can see, the blue on the left, that road there, that was already local and we had tried to recommend that to go to local. So that's a case of that. Over by Utica Sellersburg Road, the middle bubble there, and that one, we wanted it to go local, but I think they left it as a major collector. I'm having trouble reading my own writing there. Those at home can see that better than in the room. So that's the advantage if you're at home and don't have the list. And then over toward the south, the Brown Foreman Road area there, that one they want to make from a minor arterial to a minor collector in that area. And south of that, International Drive from a minor arterial to a local.
For those that aren't familiar with that area is transformed over the last decade or so. That's near between the fort and near the fort, but adjacent to the river bridge as well. So with the new interchange, the new bridge, the roads are carrying different traffic and serving different functions.
Right. Okay, and then for Floyd County, again, some of the recommendations were just not necessary because they already have it as what we had hoped to change it to. So no big deal there. They added an update along the county line road to go from a local to a 6 minor collector. And then the interesting thing there that we were a little bit surprised. I can show it in this map. In the far west and in the south, we had made some recommendations, but NDOT wanted to keep those as they are because they hit Harrison County and they didn't want it to change functional classification at the county line. And so, you know, we don't really have jurisdiction over Harrison County, so those got rejected there.
I think some of their concerns too were what federal highways might accept or not in that regard, so. Gonna be kind of protective of what they expect to hear from the Federal Highways, Indiana Federal Highways headquarters.
Yeah, so those are my major highlights, and again, if anyone who doesn't have the handout and wants it, please shoot me an email and I can send that. Or even this presentation. That's the best I could do to try, it's difficult to communicate the nuances of this in a brief presentation. So our next steps, NDOT has requested some documentation from the local jurisdiction leaders. I asked if we could just go ahead and send a letter from the TPC for them. I haven't received a reply back on that, so I might be following up with some of you to get those signed letters for them before they send it off to FHWA. And the KYTC and also the final federal updates. Once I know more, I'll communicate with you all on those. As a reminder, the state and federal officials have the final judgment, so we can only recommend what us locals think would be best, but they have the final judgment. And as a reminder, again, this work will be completed on the federal level or approved on the federal level by December 29th of this year.
But remember, we don't wanna make this a twice a year thing, but there's opportunities to change in the functional classifications, as needed. You know, this is the specific need is the urban boundary ones. So maybe even as a product of speed management study or something like that, where the classifications might have some standing and we might need to reassess in the next year or two or something like that. That's fair game.
Yep.
Let's do it. Let's not do it. Let's not send them up there, you know, like I said, every month. Let's do it. You know, once a decade seems about right, but if we can do it a time or two in between the decades, it probably makes sense to do it every couple of years or something. That'd be seems okay.
And you have to go on what we have, not what we're planning to do.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So you can't say that road's gonna be major someday. You can just say that it is major right now. So that's why it should change.
So no action on that. If anyone has any questions?
No other questions. Chris, you get to keep the podium for the amendment to the FY 25-28 transportation improvement program.
Yes. Just a schedule that I'm gonna show you all. I don't have a presentation, just the schedule to put in the slide. So, as Andy brought up earlier, we're, you know, waiting on the federal approval for amendment 1, but we are getting ready to prepare for amendment 2 now. So you all can submit applications at any time, but November 7th is the deadline for amendment 2 to the TIP. And I'll admin mod what I can. So if you have project updates that we don't know about yet, send them in. If they are eligible for an admin mod, I'll go ahead and put them in the next next admin mod that I'm doing. But amendment level, this is the one that they'll end up in. It was tricky to work around the holidays, so our public comment period, it's after Christmas, but it goes a little bit into mid-January. And I'll be sending additional email reminders as we get closer to those dates, just to make sure everyone gets their needs updated to me. And that's all I've got on that.
No other questions? We move on. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks.
Greg, you're next with the Kentucky, Indiana Transportation Excellence Award.
Yes, everybody's most anticipated award of the year, I know. Want to let everyone know that, we have opened up applications for this year, the 11th annual, Kentucky and Indiana Transportation Excellence Award, or KITE Award, chosen for the transportation project that soars above the rest. We have done this year, instead of doing a Word document, I've actually made an online form. So just go to kipta.org/transportation. You'll find that there, right under our public comment opportunity. Just click that. That gives you the rules. Essentially, it has to be a project that's in the KIPTA NPO region. Must be a project that's open to the public, or at least being planned to be by the beginning of FY26. No planning documents. This is projects only. And then,
Sorry to speak management, Brian.
yeah, sorry. But we'll, it just takes you through the questions, basically just asks you for the name, project sponsor, why you think it's, should win the award. Staff and, TPC chair will vote, and we will make an announcement on the winner, at the November annual meeting. So we'll have, nominations open until the October 24th, so got about a little bit more than a month. Yeah, if anybody has any questions, I'll take them, but that's basically it. Last year was the Bartshire Road Corridor, was really a great project, so hoping you get some, we had some great nominations, so hopefully get some really good ones this year too.
And maybe a little bit of, behind the scenes, if you submit your project and it's up there in the standings, let's say, we'll probably go and get some good drone shots for your project, so you might find that helpful to your project down the road, so maybe that can incentivize some nominations, because we'll be happy to. Greg will be happy to go out there.
Absolutely.
Get some good photos, this fall of your project.
Thank you, Greg.
Yeah.
Brady, can we have you back for the call for projects? Thank you.
Just wanted to provide a brief update for y'all on the status of the ongoing CULP projects this year. A reminder, this CULP projects is just in Kentucky, and it's just for STDG program. Right now, we are in the middle of the public review period, which actually started on September 2nd, because September 1st was Labor Day. But it will run through September 22nd. You can find a link to that public review period at kiptatransportation.org/call projects. If any of you have newsletters that you want to share that in to get more comments on, then that would be great too. As well as if you would like to see a detailed list of the project requests, you can also find that link as well, or if any of you are interested, let me know and send you a more detailed version of our applications. First week of October is planned for the working group meeting. Eventually, we'll come back to you in November with a recommendation for the CULP projects for approval. This is a list. I'm not going to go through these right now in detail, but this is a list of the applications that we have received for the CULP projects. You will notice a couple of them are ones that we just looked at, with English Station Road and the River Road multimodal improvements, third Street to 7th Street. So if those are approved via the STBG cost increase process by the TPC, those will drop off the CULP projects. So they're redundant requests. There's a couple other notes to mention. There's a couple projects on here that are CRP projects or TA projects that are requesting STBG supplemental funds. Most of them are existing projects in our NPO dedicated program requesting additional funds. There's only a couple that would be considered new. One of them would be a planning study from Prospect. And another couple are projects from KYTC that have SPP funds currently programmed in our TIP, but are requesting KIPTA funds as replacement for those state SPP funds. 7 projects from Louisville Metro, 3 projects from Oldham County, 3 projects from KYTC, 1 from Middletown, 1 from City of Prospect. We are estimating about $25 million available for this call for projects. Depending on how things work with a couple projects at the end of fiscal year 25, it's possible that there may be a couple million more in addition to that $25 million number available. And the amount that we have that has been requested is $42,384,000. If these recommendations are approved, that number requested will go down. It's actually not 37 million. That number's wrong. Ignore that. But it's going to be about $38.5 million requested pending TPC approval of the cost increase requests. That's all I have, unless anyone has any other questions about the status of the call projects.
Any questions for Brady? No? Any other business, Angie?
A couple things, or one thing really, I just want to recognize some folks that maybe joined us right after the roll call. Chris Ward from TARP, Bruce Bonnie and Vince Robinson from Trimark. Thank you guys for joining us. Tanya Higdon had some technical difficulties, but she's on there. She can hear us. She's from Federal Highways Kentucky. Miguel Zamora joined us from the Louisville Riverport, and then Mike King from Louisville Metro Government. So thank you all for joining us. Thank everybody for joining us. And maybe just a small note that maybe after the meeting or later this week, Brady and I will be attending the National AMPO Conference, Association of Metropolitan Planning Organizations. That's next week. And so if there's anything you all say, hey, go check this out, how they do that MPO thing up in those other places, let Brady or I know, maybe by the end of the week, and we'll be happy to network and figure the whole thing out for you guys. So be happy to provide some feedback that we get from that to see how the rest of the MPOs function. I think we function pretty well, but we'll see how that. Thank you. No other business.
All right. Anyone else? Anyone else for the group? Yes.
Yeah, just some air quality updates. So we at Louisville Metro Air Quality and the IDEM for Clark and Floyd County submitted exceptional event demonstrations for impacts to our air quality for 2023 for the Canadian wildfire. And the exceptional event is a tool that we can use to ask EPA to remove days where we had impacts to our air quality that were outside of our boundaries of control. So EPA Region 5 in Indiana has recently approved some removal of some days, which will bring our area, our entire NPO area into attainment for particulate matter. So that's very exciting. And then in Jefferson County side of things, we submitted an ozone exceptional event demonstration and received concurrence on 6 of the 9 days that we had requested. And so that will bring us to 70 parts per million for 2023, which meets the ozone standards for 23. So very exciting news on both sides.
Just enough, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, KIPA staff, speakers. Appreciate it.
Thanks to our Vice Chairman for sitting in today.
Anytime. Yeah. With that, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is that enough?
That's enough.